Good morning, broadcasters. It is really a joy sitting in here and sharing with you. I tell people that broadcasting is a garden. We should not allow any weeds to grow in. So we must guard it jealously. Whatever we do, we must guard broadcasting jealously. We shouldn't allow people coming with their material we wouldn't want to be found on our turf. So we're going to talk about the qualities. Remember, please, later, it is not an English phonetics class, but my little issue is that I cannot divorce how you speak from my lectures, because that is one of my fortes. That is one of the things that I find really joyful to engage in, sharing with people how to, speak well, speak clearly, speak intelligently, so that people do not follow your speech with a lot of pardon me's. So we must also bear in mind that whatever one believes in the world is like a second skin to him or her. You do not joke with that which you believe in. So we would like a situation where we guard our field or our garden jealously, as I said earlier. Now, going to the qualities of a good presenter. First of all, let us tell ourselves who a presenter is. Who is a presenter? What are the attributes he, she needs to be reasonably? What are the attributes he or she has to show at the duty post? This is very important. Now, you do not need to be a professional to know that you must be polite as a broadcaster, courteous, respectful, accommodating, tolerant, punctual or timely, etc. Now, your interaction with people must show them a paragon of all the things that I listed: politeness, courtesy, respect or respectfulness, accommodation, tolerance, punctuality, or timeliness. But for you to function well as a presenter at your radio or TV station, you must be intelligent, quick thinking, knowledgeable, discerning, loyal, well-dressed, sociable, intuitive, circumspect or introspective, curious, listening, or being attentive. Most of all, or more than any other thing, you must be emotionally intelligent. Whether you are in the newsroom, whether you are in the studio, whether you are having an interview with somebody, emotional intelligence is something you must have at the back of your mind. It is very important, okay? So, qualities of the presenter: that shot of ego you get as a presenter is human and natural. In positive application, it could lead to self-respect. On the other hand, I dare say that that sort of ego you have could become an albatross. What do I mean by this? You must remind yourself that whatever you do for your station as a presenter, you are not necessarily the best at what you do. This must be understood fully. Take it to the hilt. You are not necessarily the best at what you do. It's just that you chose to do that. Somebody who works for Shell or Julius Berger could actually have been a better broadcaster than you, but they chose a different path in life. That is the difference between you and them. Now, why do I stress this? I stress it because some of us think that once we become broadcasters, we are next to God. We are next to God. There is nothing wrong in you thinking that in terms of dishing out or churning out quality, efficiency, only God is better than you. That is good for the job. But when it comes to how you regard your relationship with other people. That just because you're a broadcaster, you are better than anyone around. That is ego that is not applied properly. Good. So we're asking you that if you're a presenter, you are not to overshoot the time on your program. The time allocated for the program you present has been fitted into a general schedule. It will portray you as a bad manager of time if you overshoot your time, on the program. Remember that whoever made the program you present 30 minutes was not drunk the day he or she drew up the schedule. Please, I'll be substituting he or she with they. That has become acceptable in English, so that the clumsiness of he or she is banished from the use of English. So you can say something like, if they told their mother, you know, or if he told their mother, instead of if he told his mother, if you're referring to a mother of more than the person you're talking about, you know, so you can do that now. So we'll be substituting he or she as we go on. We'll explain that later. Those of us who know grammar a lot can actually help us. Now, if as a presenter, you pick up fights in public or get drunk, you have not helped your station. You could actually make it lose viewership or listenership. A good presenter, just like a good journalist, knows a little about everything. Don't ever give the station the impression that you are an accident waiting to happen because you are sloppy. You need to be abreast of what's happening in society to be a worthy ambassador of your station. That is compulsory. That is necessary, you know, to be fitted into your thinking. Otherwise, you are a loose cannon. If a presenter does things that harm the company or station's image, they haven't written the station's name in letters of gold. We're asking you to please be fair to your employer by being of good behavior. You cannot come into a station and assume that the rules are going to be ones you set for yourself, once you only set for yourself. You are part of a main. You are just a segment in a general, you know, pattern. You must let the pattern work cohesively by being of good behavior. Your employer is a very important person in your life. That not be my papa job attitude is what actually kills many Nigerian companies. You dare not do that. Don't put it in our path because you'll stick out like a sore thumb. You might claim to be there for only you, but it does happen that one boy or girl, man or woman out there admires you and does indeed want to be like you. Would you want to disappoint such an individual? I ask. Hardly. Brace up to current realities in the world. Be a modern man or woman if you're going to be an effective broadcaster, if you're going to be an effective presenter. Your job might seem like every other job, but it isn't. Remember, you are in public as a radio or TV presenter. So behave yourself. There was this radio Bendel jingle. It went like this. Attention, please. Your actions can promote or ruin our national image. Things are easier when done orderly. So behave yourself, especially in public. Add to Nigeria's growing image. Be a disciplined citizen. I remember it. That's something I took from maybe 35 years ago. It never left me because I always admired the way Churchill Fode, late Churchill Fode, scripted those jingles. It's unfortunate that public service jingles are no longer on our radio or TV stations, and we have all the airtime to do this. Yet we want to bring up people. We must go back to the time when those jingles actually helped to shape up social life. That's an aside. Now, you must offer the cooperation of a bee. You know how the bee behaves in a hive. The bee colony is a quality that people admire and try to imitate in terms of unity. A good presenter must be part of the people he or she is putting out whatever they have delivered. No man is an island unto himself. A good presenter is a believer in teamwork. You have to be savvy, be receptive, and shun over ego. How many of us remember the id, the ego, and the superego? They have a place in nature. Overplaying any of them is a problem to society. In your case, the station and your viewership or listenership would find you some kind of problem, issue, trouble, if you let ego rule your day as a presenter, as a man or woman on the mic. Don't let that happen. As a presenter, it does give you good quality to stray, or rather, it doesn't give you good quality to stray into excess realization of any of these psychological elements of the id, the ego, and the superego. A presenter's productive application of the self to the station's aspirations is an appointment well made and well kept. Good. Don't joke with that. Now, that takes us to, we have been talking about behavioral expectations from you as a presenter. Good. What about the language of broadcast, which is actually your vehicle to reach, or rather of reaching the people you're talking to? And the first thing I ask you is, how good is your phonetics? Now, when we mention phonetics, people think that that affects only English. Every language has its phonetics. Are we listening to that? Every language has its phonetics. Let's not joke with that. Every language has its phonetics. So that phoneme you do when you practice and prosecute, bring into practice when you broadcast, it's not restricted to English only. It's a misnomer, if not an outright misconception for anyone to think that phonetics only
I guess CHUKWUDI is having some network problems. We'll just bear with him for a while.
For you present in this time it is English. So oh, okay. We're going to get back on in a minute. We should be back on in a minute. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. We can hear
Lovely.
you. They're all muted, so they won't be able to respond. You could ask them to give a gesture, you know, maybe use an icon to raise their hand if they can hear you. That's great.
Okay, so we can continue from where we stopped. Okay, that's a good one. We were talking about how you're part of the main. You're not a loose cannon when you broadcast. You must make sure that everything you do conforms with the aspirations. There are too many loose cannons these days. Only yes code or the dress sense of a TV broadcaster. These days we're beginning to see things very, very palatable, are not very acceptable to professional thinking. We can see that individual preferences are creeping into how we clothe ourselves. That's part of qualities of a good presenter. About your phonetics, your English phonetics has to sparkle. Now, let me dismiss a notion we have. When you learn to speak English properly, you are not engaging in an Oyibo. I make bold to tell people that those who speak English, the way English should be spoken, are more easily understood than people who claim to speak English like Nigerians. If you claim to speak in English like a Nigerian, and you tell me that a shoe is Sue because of provincial interference, or that bucket is buckety because of provincial interference, government is government because of provincial interference, or that what else can we have in this case now? Any word that is imposed on English, the use of English, because of where you come from. I mentioned likely intrusions from Southwest people. I've mentioned likely intrusions from Southeast people when I mentioned Boketi. I've mentioned likely intrusions from Northern people when I mentioned government. So it is not something restricted to a particular ethnic group, lest to begin to love one ethnic group to scorn. No, every one of us has it. We all have it. As much as I think my English has got good, I still think that provincial intrusion comes into how I use English. And it is quite easy to explain why. As long as I am in the midst of Nigerians, many of whom are not obeying the laws of good English speech, they will influence me from time to time. So instead of influence, I would occasionally lapse into the Nigerian person is that he is giving tone to every syllable in a multisyllabic word, just as it happens in his or her language, in their language. Let me give you an example with the word Amara. Amara. That is low, low, low. It's low all the way. Now, when somebody who comes from an Amara setting or setup in terms of language background comes into English, he or she, or they will take that tendency into English and for them distribute, which is a word with a second syllable stress, would become distribute. They would bring all the tones in their first language into the use of English, giving each of the syllables in distribute a tone of his own. That's why you hear a Nigerian say distribute. They are taking that from their first language, imperatives. Now that's about phonetics. How about reading for meaning as a presenter? If you do not have the ability to read for meaning, we will lose you most of the time you speak. And when you read for meaning, many things come into play. You have to, for instance, give us good pacing. You have to give us good punch. You have to give us what you call blend or cohesion. Now, blend or cohesion is very important in the use of English because that is actually what tells us how good your English is. My model, when I started listening to broadcasters on NTA, those who inspired me, one of them was a lady called UGBAJA of blessed memory. Her cohesion was simply unbeatable. And when I talk about cohesion, we are talking about movement from one word to another. Let me use a word like, okay, brother and sister, the use of the linking R in altering brother and sister actually nices up your English. I just said now your English. I didn't say your English. Because when I say that, I'll be loading my English to realities from my first language, which is Igbo. You have to learn all those things. Cohesion or blend makes your English sparkle. You have to work on that because it's very important to do. It mices up your speech. Now, why do you need punch? You need punch because if you speak in a way that we begin to have the impression that all segments of your utterance in English have the same level of punch, that would be next to fallacy. It is not. You must know the difference between content words and function words. I don't want to make this a grammar class. That's always a problem for me. When I teach English phonetics or whatever I teach, I coach people in broadcasting. I have a tendency to keep launching into grammar. Let us minimize that so that the procrastination or diversion or diversionary effort does not thief our time. Now, I'm going to ask a question which I want you to answer when we go into the general session. Do you still need photogeny on television? People should, you should please write that down. Do we still need photogeny? I know there was a time it mattered how pretty you were before you were employed on Nigerian television. Yes, NTA in particular. Do we still need that? We'll discuss it later. How are we for your screen friendliness? How are we for your screen friendliness? Must you be a big person, big frame, so that you can announce yourself so easily on television if you're broadcasting on TV? Must you have a big frame to be imposing on television? Screen friendliness. How is your screen presence? I'm talking to people who are on the tube now. That's TV, not radio people, because you could be the tiniest human being in the world, but your voice is next to the best in the world. If you have that, you're good to go as a broadcaster, but not so on television. Now, if you know you have all the elements I listed, but lack clarity, take a hint to the studio or before a camera at all. We won't need you because it's your vocalization that goes ahead of anything you do for us on TV or radio. Actually, radio presenters will tell you that if you do not have intimacy, you have no business being in radio. Intimacy, can somebody remind us to talk about intimacy for radio presenters later? When an Englishman wants to sound arrogant about his language, he tells you that clear English is clear thinking. It gets into his head. What is he trying to do here? The truth really is that he is pointing out the fact that clarity is everything when you present, when you use any piece of language. Without clarity, I deliberately kept it for last because it matters to me how clear you are. If you speak English and people keep telling you, pardon me, what did you say? You are a non-starter. You are a non-starter. I'm going to give you the story of my friend Victoria, who went to see a cousin in England. She got there, and after 3 days, she had to escape, if I may use that word, to another person's home, because the children of her cousin, the first cousin she visited, would not let her be. Anything she said, the woman's children were always returning, pardon me, what did you just say? The point is that if you do not learn to speak English the way it should be spoken, not many people will understand you. And don't listen to people who tell you that a trick in the use of English is a trick in Uyghur repete. No, those who speak English clearly, the way English should be spoken, are more easily understood than those who want to infuse Hausa, Yoruba, and Igbo in their English. That is the first thing I say in the phonetics class. People should stop deluding themselves with speak like a Nigerian. How does a Nigerian speak? I ask them. Incompetently, Does he speak in such a way that he's giving us the impression that he cannot learn good English? People should stop denigrating the Nigerian by making statements that don't mean anything. What I would take from such people is, do not speak English trying to mimic the man who learned English on British soil that accompany a native speaker use of English. You take them that phone, it will disturb us again. Yeah, you cannot speak English like somebody who learned English in Britain. Do not try, you won't succeed. And the reason is simple. There are native speaker nuances that go with the use of English if you learn English on the British soil. Somebody from Liverpool, for instance, when he says quite a lot, he doesn't say it in a way that you and I would understand it. That is why there is a tendency for people to now recommend BBC English for you as a broadcaster. But my training partner, Mrs. Bimbo Loyede, will tell you that it is no longer even BBC English. It is now Mid-Atlantic English. What does she mean by that? Britain has moved towards the rest of the world to locate or identify what is now acceptable English. We are talking about the kind of English spoken by the likes of Mrs. Bimbo Loyede. Let me name people from the early times, so to speak, so that we do not introduce jealousy among our peers in the present time. The kind of English spoken by Chief Shegolushola, the kind of English spoken by my darling, late, that's the lady I mentioned when I talked about cohesion and blend. I'll remember her name again. The kind of English, the sort of English spoken by, that is spoken by Christopher Kolade, the sort of English spoken by Ikem Nandaguba. That is where English is moving to. That is why English is no longer a given for the person who even grew up in England. If you do not go to a class to learn the English we're talking about, if you like, get born in England about 70 times, your English is not going to be acceptable to the BBC. I was talking about somebody from Liverpool, for instance. You don't hear quite a lot from those of them who speak street English. What you hear is quite a lot. Now, if you speak English that way, given the native speaker, giving us the native speaker ring, because you're from Liverpool, who will understand your quite a lot? You must learn to say quite a lot of. That is why I tell you that the English we're talking about is tutored English. English learned in a class. English everyone must understand. That is the English you must take into broadcasting. If you do not do that, we're going to find you limping along and not actually reinforcing our beliefs in you or our belief in you as a broadcaster. Because remember that as a presenter, you are some kind of role model to people, Let me not go into too much of the need for you to speak English properly. Don't join Nigerians who say the things they say. They are talking ignorantly when they say speak English like a Nigerian. So when I decide to speak English like a Nigerian, and I tell you that anus is anus, you want me to become laughing stock to people? Anus can't become anus because you're a Nigerian user of English. There is this a broadcaster from the AIT. Let's not mention her name. She went to Johannesburg, and when she got there, the front desk woman asked her, "Are you just coming to Johannesburg?" She said, "No, I was first of all in Durban before I came to Johannesburg." The African woman, a South African, looked at her and said, You didn't come from Durban. You came in from Durban. Imagine, that is disgrace. Let us stop saying the things we say. We're talking in ignorance when we poo-poo or try to ridicule people who speak English the way English should be spoken. You're telling us that a human being does not have the right to endeavor to do best what he or she tries to do at all. Anything worth doing at all is worth doing well. So let's stop that self-deprecating or self-denigrating attitude of telling people that they should speak English like Nigerian people. It is laughable. It is ridiculous, if not ludicrous. Can somebody write down ridiculous, if not ludicrous? We're going to talk about it later. As a broadcaster, as a presenter, you have to know. You just have to be a knowledgeable person. A little bit of everything is good for you as a presenter. If you tell us, for instance, you're doing a report and you tell us that the doctor used his knife, for the operation, you do not know the word scalpel because you're not a medical student. That is stupid. You have to know the word scalpel. You're not going to tell us that he used a knife. That is what I mean by you knowing a little of everything. That's it. If you get a carpenter's shed, a carpenter's workshop, you have to tell us that the man used a chisel. You do not lose, you do not lose intelligibility, or you do not lose understanding. You do not want to lose understanding by beginning to describe the tool used. You have to know it. So a presenter has to be a little of everything, even that which is a bit negative, so that they will be able to talk to people who want to engage in that sphere, on that sphere of life. People who want to sound maybe caustic on your program. Yes, we say you should be polite, but there are times you need to tell people off. What we say in public speaking at poise, the finishing school in those days. What we say is you must learn to tell a man to go to hell in a way that he looks forward to the trip. You have to learn it, You have to retain courtesy, you have to retain friendliness as a presenter. You have to retain respect for that person you're talking to. You should not talk down, Your viewer, your audience is your number one. Don't talk down them, but you have to make sure that you too are not taken for granted. You have to assert yourself without being rebellious or being abusive. Is very important. It's a delicate balancing sort of thing. But of course, if you go to people who can teach you to do the things we are supposed to do as broadcasters, you will end up picking up those things that are going to make you shine. I know that I've not mentioned everything you should be as a presenter of quality. And perhaps when we go into the Q&A session, it's going to bring out more. I find out that I do better when people ask me questions. That's the way it is. At this point, I'm going to return the mic. Well, I've not been holding it, but you've permitted me to use it. I'm going to return the mic to, is it Uwa or Bibi now? So that we can have our Q&A session. God bless you all for listening to me. It's been a big privilege. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Just right on time, even with the epileptic internet connect we have in Nigeria.
Yes.
Now, time for questions from our members. If you have any question, kindly put up your hand, the hand signal, so that we can call on you and then we can interact better. We have just 1 hour for that. Thank you so much. May I inform everyone that this is the critical stage because, most of us, we are on the beat, we are on the job. So this is on the job training. So the inches you have while working, you can discuss them here. Shola Jayesimi.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. OKOLIE UGBAJA. Thank you for the opportunity to learn. We are under tutelage.
Thanks for talking to me. I envy your voice. I love it. Go on.
Okay, sir. So let me quickly take two, and I'll be very brief about it.
Okay.
You spoke about, just as you wrapped up now, holding your own as a presenter.
Yes.
With an abusive or bullying guest.
Yes.
And you hit on it spot on.
Yes.
We need to, I know that we need to remain polite. But
yes.
I want to share an example from somebody who has also done this before us. He's gone now, Dr. Ajunuma.
Okay.
I was watching Tuesday Live about 18 years ago, no, 19 years ago. And he was the host. That was before he went to the communications place and all.
Yes.
It went to the NNPC. And the host, someone called into the program, and the person was very, this is my analysis, my opinion, quite abusive. You know, telling Dr. Ajunuma that probably he didn't know what he was doing there as a guest. He was doing this and doing that. And Dr. Ajunuma said something. His words were, look, he called the guest the caller's name and said, you do not have a right to speak to me like that. I hold a PhD in this field where I am. That's why I have the privilege of sitting on this panel, moderating this program. Please, you have no right whatsoever. I don't know who you are. I don't know where you're coming from. And please don't speak to me like that again. And he gave an instruction because it was analog kind of thing then. And whoever was, the producer behind the scenes caught the call. Now, as someone who was just beginning 2 years in broadcasting at that time, 2-3 years, I was taken aback and I was like, is this overboard? But on reflection, I realized that there are some people who are just deliberate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I lost you briefly.
Okay, so
yeah.
Dr. Junuma said something.
Yes. I got the Junuma bit to the last word. There was another thing you added, just that last bit.
Okay, so I said that for me, when watching, I was like, is this not being overboard? But later I reflected and said, there are times people who are listeners, viewers, need to be reminded that, look, the people on set as moderators or presenters, they are not nitwits. They don't have empty skulls. They've gone to school and they need to be able to assert themselves. So I said I should bring that practical example up. Now, my number two question, as a presenter, Mr. UGBAJA has been my boss way back. I am a editor and I'm also a producer. And that's my real forte. But I decided to move into presentation so that we can add value.
That's your forte.
Yeah, 40. Okay,
forte.
Sir.
Thank you, sir. First syllable. Okay, go on now.
Thank you, sir.
And it is forte oil, not fort oil. Forte oil. That's exactly great. Okay, go on.
So a situation where a presenter, a producer of a news content brings you a material that you felt because you have some strong editorial background. Let me give an example, a clear example. Some soldiers had been shot dead by terrorists, and their bodies were displayed there. Cameras caught their bodies. And editorially, I hold the position that, look, if your troops are falling into harm's way, you don't glorify the terrorists by showing corpses of your soldiers. So pre-production, I made that point to the production crew that, look, no, just give us a burnt out Humvee or APC of the soldiers, though we are saying as we lost soldiers. Yes. So that story was taken in the bulletin. The assistant producer used a map of the states where this incident occurred. Yes. So the lead producer told my co-presenter to retake that story at the end of the bulletin. That the lead producer didn't tell me that because the lead producer knows this man is also an editor, and I would not have taken that story. Number one, my editorial views were, why should I glorify terrorists? We've taken the story, then want to take it again. I wouldn't do that. So where do we draw the line between your insistence as someone who is also a content producer and, a presenter? Is that insubordination to the presenter, to the producer? So that's teamwork you spoke about between producers and presenters. Where do we draw the line? Do I just say, okay, well, in this case, I'm a presenter, let me obey everything?
Okay. Yeah, Shola, I'm sure there will be other questions. So let's take the meat of what you've told us, please, my dear. Thank you so much. Now, first of all, I want to say that it is unfortunate that many newsrooms, one of the reasons I left the newsroom rather early is that I couldn't put up with some of the things that the newsroom became identifiable with. That's the truth. I'm not making it up. I envy you guys who are still in the newsroom because the newsroom is supposed to be my garden. There was a stand-up I did, peace to camera, please. That's the better word, the better phrase. And the way I signed up was that the newsroom is not actually a place for you to engage in social engineering only. Maybe it is also suitable to provide a graveyard for you. It tells you the passion I have for staying in the newsroom. If possible, I die in there. But today I'm not in the newsroom because I don't like some of the things we have subjected the newsroom to. There is a kind of journalist I want to be. Yeah, I'm not claiming to be a very good man, but Shola, you know me. There are things I insist on. A journalist should be one of the first models that can be pointed to in society because he lives above board. He tries to do things the proper way. But answer your question directly. The reason I started like this is that the newsroom is no longer what it should be. A lady, a young girl from Nassau State Polytechnic, I think I should call her a lady, really, taught me the terms kicker and rider. Kicker and rider. Those of us who didn't go to the communication school, who are journalists by practice, occasionally lapse into knowing some of the terms to use for broadcasting, for journalism. You should stop pretending that you know everything. Shola, in the newsroom, I showed you guys I did not know everything. Whatever you guys were ascribing to me, you must be ready to learn from everyone. Now, the editor you mentioned, what I'm going to say is, what a pity. What a pity. Because what it shows me is that you have not at your editorial meetings determined the kind of life you should live. News is not just about a script. News is not just about the angles to a story. For you who work on television, news is also about the kind of visuals you use. NBC actually has a portion in the regulations that is against showing gory scenes, whether they are those of our soldiers whom we need to show some patriotism by not disgracing them further because they were vanquished by the terrorists. You know, you have to learn that there are things you don't even show on TV. Dead bodies are not allowed. If you want to make an editorial point, which is rare, by showing dead bodies, we expect you to give us a long shot, in which case we will just see mounds far away. We shouldn't be able to identify them as dead bodies. I got annoyed yesterday and put out something on what people wear on television these days. The truth is that people are now, the system seems to have given people a blank check and they are filling in any amount they like. That editor, I dare say, went wacko by insisting that you return the burnt out Humvees and the soldiers on the ground and all that. It is not done. Even when they are not soldiers, you're not supposed to show us dead bodies. You're not supposed to show us the dead bodies of terrorists. It's against NBC rules. Let's leave NBC now. I'm one of those who write against NBC when I need to. But let me tell you, some of the things NBC talks about to you are actually things that social etiquette should teach you. You do not need to wait for the NBC to tell you that you should be polite when you broadcast to people. You should not talk down, on people. You do not do that. Actually, I'll tell you that your parents didn't bring you up properly. If you do that, it's not an NBC matter. It is about how you behave. A lady who goes on the air and we see a little of soft flesh on her chest and she's reading the news should go see a psychiatrist before even applying for a job. There are things that are not done in our profession. So that editor, I dare say, is a pity. And let me say this. I am one of the 4 pioneer lecturers at Channels TV Academy. And when we talked about 20 reporters from across the world, one of them complained bitterly about your editors. We had to tell Kingsley Ranta that he would need to write to editors across Nigerian newsrooms to allow the young people more voice in what they do. It is not a civil service arrangement. The Nasarawa State Polytechnic girl who taught me kick and rider got 1,000 naira for lunch because she taught me something. There is no shame on the path of learning. If you actually become a humble person, childlike in your acquisition of knowledge, over time, you find out that you become more knowledgeable than the sources you're trying to imitate or to mimic. That is how it works. The secret of the things I know about broadcasting, apart from the fact that I traverse the world to watch TV stations, I don't learn broadcasting from Nigerian people. I'm sorry to say this. I learned broadcasting from the likes of Mehdi Hassan, interviews that work. That's what I call my modules of interviews that work, you know? From the likes of Marwan Bishara, the man on empire, who is against the West. I learned broadcasting from the likes of, Christiana Mampo. At least I can mention her on CNN. I don't like CNN a lot, you know? I see it as a melody on Americanism, you know? So the point is this, you must be ready to learn from anyone. Your editor should not have done that. You are not supposed to show us burnt out Humvees and dead bodies. No, it's not done. That is etiquette. When I was in MBI, I haven't come here, guys, to tell you that I'm so good. I have never been so good. I keep learning. OPC allegedly killed a man, put his head in a saucer, on a saucer, and displayed it. And we took the picture. And on MBI News that day, I was even head of news. Can you believe that? We showed a man's head on a saucer. MBI has started going out to London. The owner of the station, Senator Mike Ajebo, called me, CHUKWUDI. Yes, you're my favorite. But when you get stupid, I try to tell you you're stupid. How would you feel if you were in London having your dinner, then all of a sudden you see the head of a man on a saucer? You know, what does that do to you? I regretted my life for the next 10 days. You know, sometimes something happens to your head. That is why it is not good for only you to think about how our news should go out. A man who is the secretary, the chairman, the chief whip at a meeting, he's the only one at the meeting, ends up drawing up conclusions, or rather resolutions, that encourage him to go and have sex with his mother because he has not been told by other lips that this is not done. That editor should have allowed the unity, the teamwork of the newsroom to prevail and allowed young voices to be heard as well. About Livia Jonuma, we do not malign the dead. It's part of our upbringing. So we say Livia Jonuma of blessed memory. But let me say this. It is only Nigerian people who have PhD academics that tell you to call them doctor. They're not called doctor in the UK. They're not called doctor in the US. They're not called doctor in Sweden. It is only clinical doctors we recognize in our news. It is only professors we recognize in our news. We do not have architect somebody. Nigerian news writers have gone haywire. They need to be brought back and taught how to behave properly. So Dr. Livia Jonuma saying, I have a PhD and all that. That PhD, we should not malign the dead, remember? It's not mentioned in public because it's an academic PhD. The only time you mention a PhD is when you are on a university campus as a lecturer, because the hierarchy has to be respected. But if you took a PhD in drama, and you're on the air and you're telling somebody that he should know you have a PhD. We say, PhD in what? Your PhD is taken from a tiny corner of the world, which does not automatically qualify you to speak about everything in the world competently. You can take a PhD in cassava cloning. It's a PhD. How does that affect communication skills? So the Nigerian person actually has to caution himself. And it's becoming more and more rampant. There was a man I needed to interview. They told me that he would insist that I call him a doctor. I decided not to interview him anymore because he took a doctorate. I mean, an academic doctorate in the civil service. He's supposed to still be a Mr. That is what they are called in the US. That is what they are called in the UK. That is where they are called in civilized places. So they can be separated from the clinical doctor. Why do they call Sanjay Gupta, the CNN reporter, a doctor? It's because he's truly a medical doctor. Does any of you know whether Krishna Mampo has a doctorate? Do you think that Wolf Blitzer and the rest of them don't have a doctorate? Do you ever get to hear that? Nigeria needs to become a problem to it. And it's all a result of inferiority complex, I dare say. Let's leave it there so that other people can ask their questions.
Wow, we're learning. And now we have Yusuf Lawal Wakili. Please ask your question.
Thank you very much, sir. You've spoken a lot, quite a lot about the topic in question. And we really appreciate the talent, sir. We grabbed a lot. Sir, I want to relate to two things, sir. Your recent speech, what you ended to, the point about titles, doctorate, and others. How about us putting a text caption to maybe the guest interview, be it recorded or live? Are we going to inscribe that particular title, doctor, or any other one, if at all we cannot say it verbally, one? Secondly, there are presenters or newscasters who have what we call LIFA, the lucky acquired foreign accent. And quite a good number of use out some media work, especially in terms of presentation. But unfortunately, because they lack the professional training, you find them duped into some of these issues that you have spoken about, especially with respect to those qualities you've mentioned at the beginning of the presentation or the whole meeting. Yeah. I want you to send a strong signal to our media, not just here in this, but in Africa generally, on please, if at all they want to employ people of such caliber, they need to be sent for a professional training so that it will safeguard the reputation of our profession generally. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Yusuf. Thanks a lot, Mr. Wakili. First of all, you talked about can I restructure it to luckily acquired accent? I heard something like lucky acquired, luckily acquired. You have to use an adverb at the beginning of it. Okay. What you call luckily acquired accent is actually what we call affectation. That's the correct word in broadcasting, where somebody tells you, President Muhammadu Buhari says that his government. That is stupidity. Because the first thing that happens to me is that I don't concentrate on the message anymore. I am concentrating on the absurdity coming from your lips. You have distracted me. Communication skills, it's a bobuya matter. Yoruba people, please pardon me. It's a total quality thing. You don't know one thing and fail to know the other. The problem with Nigerian broadcasting is that you are putting out people who are half-made. If I look at you, you're not a total broadcaster. I tell you that those areas where you lack something are going to impinge on the areas where you have positives. You have to try to know a little of everything. Those who speak good English are people that you love to listen to. Chegulu Shola, Christopher Kolade, Iken Nandagobo of blessed memory, Bimbo Loyede, John Momo, you know? John Momo, I suspect that John Momo perhaps voiced the Chartered Bank advert in those days. I'm not sure. I'm just thinking he did. Voice modulation. I didn't even mention that. And we're talking about the qualities of a good presenter. Now, listen to the script. Nothing binds like a promise. Nothing divides like a promise broken. As commercial bankers of integrity, we believe in keeping our promises. That way, all our customers and their friends will keep theirs. Diamond Bank, the commercial bank to treasure. I told you guys that I learn from anything that comes into my horizon. The Diamond Bank advert went out of, out of the tube, went away from the tube, so to speak, more than 15 years ago, but I'd copied it. The one I told you about, attention please, your actions can promote or ruin our national image. I got it more than 36 years ago. But when I see things, when I hear things that are going to enhance me as a broadcaster, I file them away for future use. So the point is this: people should make sure that wherever they are learning. You mentioned two things. I have just touched the last one. Affectation is the problem those people have. And the way to deal with affectation is this. That's what I told ITV broadcasters about 3 weeks ago. I told them, you don't go to your mother and say, Mommy, I would like to go to the market. Is that what you tell her? No. Do not speak to us on television or radio the way you do not speak to your friend at all. It is, Mommy, I'd like to go to the market tomorrow. Will you permit me? I'd like to go to the market tomorrow, Mommy. Because you're supposed to sound matter of fact. You're not supposed to sound ridiculous. You're not supposed to sound affected. You're supposed to say it out in a straightforward manner, straight English. That's what Bimbo Loyede calls it. And when I say calls it, I'm not trying to sound phone, because it's the long vowel or. I'm not going to say call it, calls it. No. If I say call it, then that would be the sound in God. That would be the sound in mop, to mop the floor. It is calls it, because that vowel is O. If you do not respect your long and short vowels of English or in English, people are going to end up with a lot of pardon me's because they do not understand you. Let me give you an example. I live here. I live here. And the British man was listening. He said, yes, go on. I can hear you. Yes, go on. So I said, I live here. What do you mean by go on? I said, I live here. He said, go on, I'm listening. When he said it the third time, the British person said, where are you living here for? Because the British man understood L-E-A-V-E and not L-I-V-E, which is live. I live here. I live here. So when you hear people say things in English, don't say they're trying to sound English. They're trying to sound right. That's why our uncle, Sidney Ufedi, says, speak right. That's it. I live here. It cannot become I live here. You will be misunderstood. Or in your grammar, you tell, your pronunciation, you tell a British girl, I had you. I had you, because you're a Nigerian. Because you must speak English like a Nigerian person. You tell her when you had her, where you had her, and how the session was. Because you would have said, ended up saying that you had sex with her. If a British person wants to be funny, she'll tell you, you've been going out with her for 3 months. Have you had her? Have you had her? Just because you refuse to pronounce heard properly. You know, people say things they don't understand in this country. And I say, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they say. That's the truth. I heard you cannot become I had you. You go tell them where you have them. You know? So those people are affected. You know, they're affected. The luckily acquired accent is affectation. Then quickly, in news writing, we do not put titles except Prof, and clinical doctor. Any other title, we do not put it there. Because one of the reasons is that that is international practice. President Joe Biden says he'll be away to Asia tomorrow to try to convince people who live there that supporting Russia is a delicate matter. He was speaking to correspondents at Heathrow as he made a stopover in London. You know, you have to. Then you get to the second and third line, you say Biden further told them, Biden also said, you're not even going to put President Biden anymore there. You're not even expected to put Mr. anymore there. When you sound the second name, it becomes Dr. C says, you know, Dr. C also said. It's not going to be Dr. C said or Chief Raymond Dr. C also said, because we have our rules in news across the world. That is how it is done. Do you hear any titles on Al Jazeera and the rest of it? No. So that handles that. The problem with Nigeria is that it has pushed excesses to a successful conquest of society. Excesses have become items used to determine conquest of society, and that is unfortunate. No titles, my brother, apart from the clinical doctor. I mentioned Sanjay Gupta, whom CNN people still call doctor because he is really a medical doctor. He handles their health. Otherwise, the other people there, half of them have the doctorate. Nobody calls them doctor. Is that clear? Thank you so much.
Very clear, sir. Now we have Florence Ajumobi.
Okay, Oris Lillian was actually, okay, no problem. Florence, can you please?
Reverend Olatunji Udumosu Ogbewe. All of you, I see your hand. We're going to call you one after the other. Kindly allow us. Florence Ajumobi, you have the floor now.
Okay, is that me? It should be Ifi Melody or Ifoma Ajumobi, not Florence. This is.
Can you say your name again?
Ifoma Ajumobi.
Now,
calling in from Enugu.
I can tell you.
Ifoma Ajumobi.
Yes.
Now, who has done Ajumobi? Can we clap for that person? You are not Ajumobi. Your job is not to anglicize your name. When you say Ajumobi, you're putting the stress on the first syllable so that you sound somehow, you know?
It's Igbo.
Ajumobi, okay. Igbo. Interesting.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I wanted to say. That Ifoma's name is actually Igbo, not.
Please.
It's not the Yoruba.
Excuse me. Nobody runs away from CHUKWUDI UGBAJA easily. I don't let that happen. Now, how is it Ajumobi? What does Obi mean there? Is it the Obi the ruler or Obi the mind? We have to conquer this. The heart. Ajumobi.
Yes.
That is short for
the
what?
Heart.
That is short for what? Ajumobi, like CHUKWUDI.
Ajumobioyi.
Ajumobioyi. I have to apologize to you profusely because you have proved your point. I thought you were anglicizing your name. Ajumobioyi. So it's Ajumobi. Can we please stop for her? Thank you so much, my dear.
Welcome. Ask for speaking allowance.
I hate it when a Nigerian person anglicizes an African name. But please forgive me, I goofed there. Go on.
All right, thank you very much, sir. I'm particular about that too. When Igbos try to anglicize their name, I'm very particular about that too.
Yes, my dear.
Okay, I basically want to say thank you for this meeting. I just got to know about it and got connected immediately, and I've been gaining so much value. So on the part where you talked about scenes where you show on TV, yes. Are you saying, I mean, sometimes those pictures are put out there to help show the level of, you know, the situation going on, and you can't show any part of violence or Anything like that that's happening?
Can I answer immediately? Now, the question is very simple. The answer is very simple. Would you be the news producer and presenter that aggravates the situation for a viewer or listener? It's very simple. There is nothing on radio or TV that cannot be answered properly. Would you like to be a TV producer or presenter who after the job they have done on the 8 o'clock news or whatever, end up aggravating the situation for the citizenry because what they saw compounded their problems? It's very simple, very easy. Common sense is relevant in broadcasting. If you, for instance, if you go out to cover a news item and it's a fight between Hausa and Igbo people, and your script tells us that 2 people were killed today by 2 Igbo traders were killed today by Hausa people. That is irresponsible news writing. First of all, you're not supposed, even though you saw it happen, you are not the one who is supposed to say it. It is the emotions of your story, which are captured in what we call the sound bite, that should express that. And even when you express that, because it's likely to come from an Igbo person who says they were killed by Hausa people, you must also go to the other contenders to try to get them to counteract what has been said. That is what we call all sides all the time. Is that clear? But let's not divagate. I asked a question. If you show me, because you want to show how serious the thing is, and you now show me a man cutting off somebody's head, how much have you helped society and decency of expression? It's up to you. Where do you draw the line? That's the question. Where do we draw the line between sensationalism and decency? Social etiquette. Very easy. I have nothing else to say. The choice is yours. But remember that that's the NBC to contend with if you cross the line.
Jennifer Olugbo, go ahead.
Good day. It's a pleasure to be part of this great learning section. I'd like to say thank you, sir, for the opportunity.
Stop there. Learning what?
Section.
Learning. No, you performed the sacrilege. No, spell it.
S-E-S-S.
Thank you. Why then do you pronounce it as if it is S-E-C-T-I-O-N? Learning session.
Okay.
Session.
Session.
Go ahead, my dear. Go ahead,
okay,
my
thank
dear.
you.
Session.
Thank you.
Session. Different from section. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you for that. You talked about the qualities. You talked about the qualities of a presenter, a good presenter. I want to ask this. Is a good voice a must-have for a presenter? That's one of the questions. Then the other one talked about being
good voice.
Yes, a good voice. Is it a must for a presenter?
Accommodating, yes.
The second question talked about a presenter being accommodating.
I've put that down. Go to the next question.
Okay, being accommodating, be friendly with your guest.
Accommodating.
Yes, be friendly.
Tolerant. Yes.
What occurs when you have an annoying and insulting guest right in front of you while presenting? How do you handle it so that you don't lose out from your presentation skills?
Say that again, the last bit.
When you have an insulting guest right in front of you, you're asking questions and your guest is trying to talk you down and belittle you. How do you handle the situation?
Yes.
In order not to pull away from your professionalism while presenting?
Now, I was listening to Arise TV the other day, and I had to pass a comment. One of the female presenters said, a former minister of communications for that matter, because that person was insulted. I praised the pair, the way they handled the man. I give it to them. They were great. But that statement was unfortunate. You don't go sarcastic just to give it back to the person who's on the other side. She said a former communications minister for that matter, because the man was not talking like somebody who knows the communication skills and respect for the other person. You do not return fire. That's not what you do. Presentation is a duty post where you are supposed to practice, prosecute, put to action all you have learned about tolerance and accommodation. Your job is to show the other man, you have decided to show me that you've got a bit of the gutter. I'm not going there with you. I won't be there. It's not my place, because I was well brought up in the art beyond the act of presentation. You must take presentation. Let me answer you in a native manner. You are stupid. You're an idiot. The whole of your generation, they are very stupid. You could reply with, you too, you're stupid. In fact, your mother is stupid. You could go insulting. You could go, you could start dropping invectives that simply show that you too can play a bad game. But what would you have portrayed of yourself at the end of the day? You would have told us that you too do not have the etiquette of speaking. Now let me rewind it. You are stupid. You're an idiot. You're a fool. Why do you call me stupid? Have I done anything stupid here? Can you explain to me how I have behaved stupidly? The choice is yours. That a madman decides to take your towel while you're having a bath does not mean that you're going to have to rush out of that bathroom, display all your genitals to the point that we no longer are able to tell between you and tell you apart. Actually, it's a second madman we're seeing. You do not join the marketplace where polluted oil is sold just because there is a quick naira to make. It's as simple as that. The choice is yours. When I tell you guys that I feel bad what's happening in newsrooms, I'm not saying it to sound important or to sound relevant. We have demonized a sacred post, the post of a presenter. We have demonized news writing. For instance, you hear Nigerians adopt the military parlance. 3 terrorists were neutralized today. What does neutralize mean? Were they arrested? Were they killed? What happened to them if they were killed? 3 terrorists were killed today by a detachment of the Nigerian army fighting in Burma. 3 terrorists were arrested today. Can you please be forthright? Can you please be direct? Can you please be straightforward? News writing is straightforward. It doesn't borrow parlance from a department which, to the best of my knowledge, could actually be a goat in the court. The military cannot give you news words. It's either the terrorists were killed, they were arrested, or whatever, but not neutralized. Neutralized is military parlance. That's the point. So please, you have to be accommodating. You have to hold yourself back as much as possible. What you do, if the person begins to call you names, like, I'm going to mention this because it's highly positive, like Rufai told the man I was talking about, my name is Rufai. He told him his name. He helped the man because the man was treating Rufai as if it didn't matter. Rufai asserted himself. A presenter should assert himself boldly, but not sarcastically. So that answers the question. It's actually how much etiquette you have that determines how you behave. It is not the laws of broadcasting that help you deal with the situation. It's how much etiquette you have as a person. Let us stop confusing issues. The NBC can write all the rules they want to write. I tell my children, I am my father's son. I am trying to say something. Then I tell them, are you your father's son? Yes, I'm trying to make a point. I am the father of a farmer that was so proud, his yams were so long, and he was known for telling the truth. It's not something AIT taught me or NBC taught me. No, those are enhancers of what I already have or what I should have. You should have the etiquette of public speaking so that you know how to deal with people. And you're supposed to be the man or woman who never gets annoyed. Because the person who said, a former communications minister, for that matter, was losing her cool. She got phased. Don't let them phase you. One of their ploys is to phase you so that you lose control. They take over your interview. You don't let that happen. That's it.
Thank you so much.
Bless you.
Yes, thank you, sir. Now we have Reverend Olatunji.
Yes, I can hear you, Reverend.
Okay, Oga CHUKWUDI.
How are you?
Good morning. Good morning.
Can I go on?
Go on.
Yes,
we can
please.
hear you.
Yes, I said Oga CHUKWUDI.
It's okay.
The glory of a tree.
Yes.
The glory of a tree is in the leaves.
Okay.
The beauty attract people to the tree.
Yes.
It looks like that is not the situation in presentation. Presentation is the window to broadcasting.
God
it
bless
is what
you.
attracts the viewers and the listeners to broadcasting. As far back as 1972, when I was learning oral English in secondary school, I got interested in being a broadcaster. Why? The way they were teaching us how to pronounce words.
Yes.
I grew up in an academic community where they speak English a lot.
Yes.
But today, I want to throw the blames to managers across the line, not only in presentation, because there should be a synergy between the presentation department or unit or programs department and other departments like the news department, which we don't have again. Because our presenters will not be nasal. Most of them today are nasal. They speak through the nose. I want you to make a comment on that.
You mean they're nasal? They're nasal. Okay.
Nasal.
I thought you were talking about the people in charge of space exploration, you know. Okay, nasal, they're nasal cavity. Thank you, my dear.
Yes.
Now,
yes,
we have already yeah, go on.
The other one, sir, the other one you answered me, sir, was that I was faced off when I saw the anchorman of BBC. You know, most of us now, we are tuned to BBC to go, get in touch with the programs of the burial of the Queen. And the anchorman kept repeating, It's almost like what you hear in Nigerian situation. You get my point? Are you following me? These things should not come in presentation. And that's why I say I throw it to the news manager. What is your comment about this?
Now, Reverend, thank you so much. Thank you for being so outing, if I may use that you know, that is an adjective, you know. The point is this: you just reminded us that we did not mention one important aspect of a presenter's qualities. That is fluency. Fluency. The people who say are not fluent. If you're not fluent, I don't see how you can be a good broadcaster. If you're not fluent, I don't see how you can make your points when you are handling an interview. Actually, your begins to become a distraction, you know. Okay, since it's more than one M, they begin to become a distraction way into whatever you do. And just like the senseless dressing we see these days, where biceps are even exposed, you know, disgustingly, where the soft flesh on a woman's chest, I guess occasionally even where eyelashes become like the baby, you know, that what we do, we always throw it up and down when we're young. The eyelashes, we put them on TV. I begin to watch the eyelashes and know what you're telling me. You're distracting me. You have no reason to
I think we have lost CHUKWUDI there. I can't see him online anymore. We have the privilege of having very good presenters here. I would like to call on Cordelia to assist us in answering some of the questions while CHUKWUDI comes back. We have 5 hands up because of time. So we have Cordelia, we have Delightsome. So happy to meet you here, ma'am. So the two of you kindly help us with the questions. Let me take Dorcas Koki now. Dorcas, come online.
All right, good morning. Good morning to you all. It has been a very nice session. I have enjoyed every bit of it, but I had a question for Mr. CHUKWUDI. Okay, like you said, someone else can answer. So it's about pronunciations of names as it is. First off, in Nigeria, we know that different accents and the way they pronounce things. Reverend Eniola earlier, when he spoke, he pronounced Mr. CHUKWUDI in an Yoruba way. So that's his accent. And people from that pronounces things in an idiot manner would normally portray the Easterners, the Igbo people, who pronounce this word easy, right? Normally it's easy, but they have a way of pronouncing easy and they call it eze. So in situations like this, I've had so much outcry of people saying that their names are not pronounced the way it was meant to be pronounced, the way it is supposed to be pronounced. I am quite sure that when people look at my first name, they will pronounce it the way they think it should be pronounced, but it might not be the right way. So my first name is Erenayo Dorcas Koki. Those are my names.
Yes.
And then if you are not from my state, I'm from Bayelsa State, you can pronounce Erenayo the way you're supposed to pronounce Erenayo. So in that situation, Mr. CHUKWUDI, in a situation whereby I'm not Igbo and I don't have an accent to pronounce your name, and I pronounce it something similar to your name, that is Mr. CHUKWUDI OKOLIE UGBAJA, and I pronounce it, then you make an outcry. In that situation, what should I do? And first of the question I'm trying to ask is this: if you don't have an accent, I don't have Yoruba accent, I don't know how to pronounce a certain Yoruba name, like there's this word Oni, I think that's what they pronounce it as, Oni of Ife or something like that.
Oni, yes.
Yeah. In situations like that, how would you approach such situations, and what would you advise the presenter in that situation to do?
You don't have a problem. There is no newsroom that does not have all the language groups in Nigeria. Not one newsroom. You have no reason whatsoever to mispronounce a Nigerian name. If there is nobody of that language group in the newsroom, put a call through to somebody you know that comes from that point. It is utterly, completely inexcusable for you to pronounce a name anyhow because you're not from that language group. It is not done. When Perestroika and Glasnost were on, we were so easily saying Gorbachev, the strong Russian R. Many of us learned it, but we can't learn Ikechukwu. Some people call Ikechukwu God's power. They call it Ikechukwu, meaning God's anus. Imagine, that is sacrilege. If you don't know it, go and learn it. It's as simple as that. Don't insult people. If you don't know it, go and learn it. And for those who say Eze, I read linguistics. So part of the reason I'm able to talk to you the way I talk to you is that I read linguistics. We are in the business of taking language apart and putting it all together again. There are Igbo dialects that call it Eze Onitsha, Obosi, they call it Eze. Oka, Eze. But in the hinterland, it's called Eze. And I want to tell you that those who pronounce Eze as Eze are the ones who members of their language group call Gate, Gat, Ananagat. It is that that they take into English, Ananagat, instead of he's at the gate. They say he's at the gate. Provincial intrusion coming into your use of English. So you have to know what your background is so that you can treat your ailment properly, accurately, effectively. But as I said, there is no excuse whatsoever for you to mispronounce anyone's name, whether it is Arab, whether it is English, whatever it is, go and learn it. Go and learn it. If you call Ikechukwu, Ikechukwu, he has all the right to hire all the sons in Nigeria for you destroying his name. There is no excuse whatsoever, my dear. It's as simple as that. Go and learn.
Thank you. Thank you. So, Lillian Oris.
Okay, thank you very, very much. It's a wonderful opportunity to be here. So good listening to you. And I also felt very, very wonderful listening to Reverend Eniola's comments. When he talked about way back 1972, I was like, oh, that's a veteran. And I am one person that grew up being very privileged, listening, learning from my radio in particular. I learned from many announcers, as it were, and very fortunately, I have one of them here who is also a boss, kind of in the office, talking about Ochukwu. And each time it gives me joy when I listen to my radio, when I listen to presenters from the radio. I must add here, sir, that I don't know if any of you that are veterans, if there's anything that you guys can do about NBC and the stations that are being brought up now. You tune to a station. In fact, if you have 10 radio stations today, I tell you, 9 of them are on Pidgin. 9 of them are on Pidgin. And the other time I was listening and one announcer kept bombing the whole thing. Like the one station was bombed, one town was bombed. And I was like, if my son is listening to this, what would he learn? Let alone we that are announcers, like you said, learning is continuous, you know. You tune, you want to learn from a fellow presenter, and all you keep hearing is the other side of the language, not too good. Sir, where I want to come in, you talked about the use of language.
Yes.
I've been privileged to go to 1 or 2 trainings like this, and there was one of the trainings where they said, most times when you're talking as an announcer, what is important is for you to be understood. So, like you, in as much as you know some of these words, you put your audience into consideration. Like if you're talking to a group of well-educated persons, that you could go very strict with your language to let them know that is markets and not markets. That you know it's machete and not market. But when you're talking to maybe a set of market women, you're telling them on the need to keep their machete very well so that their little kid does not play with it and stuff, that you could like machete it at that point in time because of your audience, that if you go machete, they might not understand it. So is that right, that you have to be choosy in as much as you know the right words? You know it is markets and not market, but because of your audience, at a point in time, you have decided to market it. I don't know if I'm quite right with that.
Yes, thank you for that. Thank you so much. First of all, you have to be choosy, okay? And apart from that, choosy, yeah, you took it from choose, so it's choosy. Okay, very good. Then we talked about market and not market. It's not the S sound there, it's the short A, you know, short A, market. Very good. Then there was, you were talking about somebody who was bombing and bombing instead of bombing. Not many people know when the B is lost in English speech. Climbing, bombing, my thumb, my right thumb, and all that. We have to teach it. When you know it, you teach other people. Teach them to teach other people. But having said that, the first question I ask you is this. Should you be using the so-called BBC English when you're talking to market women? It's simple.
Of course, no. For me, for me, I would say no. At times, when I anchor certain programs and I know my audience, instead of using a word like machete, I go for cutlass.
Do you know that? Okay, first of all, that word is not machete; it's machete. Okay. Machete. It has French roots. Machete. Machete. Okay. And please, thank you, because it gives me opportunity to remind us as broadcasters that there is no word called machete. It's not in English. Okay. It's machete. M-A-C-H-E-T-E. Machete. Okay? Having said that, you know the problem with Nigerian broadcasting. People are now talking about BBC, you know, taking over the broadcast space or the broadcasting space. Why would they not? They are speaking to people in the language they understand. Do you think that because I was taught English by a British woman, Mrs. Ashford, in the phonetics laboratory of the University of Benin, I'm going to make a case for English being the first language? No. The first language in this country is Pidgin. And if the policy tomorrow says we must broadcast more in Pidgin and not English, so be it. It depends on the audience you're targeting. What determines your language is the audience, is not the policy. We need to say this so that your news stops dropping statements from Lai Mohammed, and President Muhammad Buhari has said, Lai Mohammed also noted, we took the news away from the Nigerian people who own the news. A day with the palm wine tapper. Who is thinking about that? The disappearing fish in the Niger Delta. Who is talking about that? We listen at 8 o'clock and 10 o'clock too. Policy statements, you became government PROs. Now let me not divagate. Let's go back to what you asked. If you are in a situation where Pidgin English becomes necessary, I'm a rebel broadcaster. The 3 times I had Chief Gani Fahimi on my show, it was explosive because I'm that kind of person. He accused me of being one of those who frittered away the national treasury in the name of one media tour, which was led by Jerry Garner as information minister then. And I had to return. Chief, you're rather too sarcastic about government. Is it because you do not know how government works? He didn't like it. He returned another salvo. The 3 times I interviewed Chief Gani Fahimi, it was war. But he told me, look at you, I don't know you. If permit me to sound like a Nigerian, you're not a Yoruba person, but anytime you call me, I come to your show because I like the way you do your things. I fight my guests, but politely. Going back to what you said, if you're talking to, I was talking about rebel broadcasting, if I'm anchoring an English show today on Nigerian television, I am rebellious enough, I'll be rebellious enough to drop to Pidgin if I think that the person who rang in is not good at the use of English, the so-called BBC English. Mama, wait till they talk since we say all these politicians, the way they see. Even like saying, I saw some manifesto with the CEO, when they enter office, we not go. What do you think? I'm going to rebel and leave the so-called, because I'm a communicator. But somebody's going to come from the programs department. That program is in English. We live in a straitjacket in Nigeria. We are not flexible. We do not move with the times. The trend does not determine where we go so that our audience becomes greater. And at the end of the day, the Colgate manufacturer is interested in the number of eyeballs you're attracting to television, not the quality of your English. I'm not saying you should violate the laws of English. But if you're talking to somebody who is well-versed in Pidgin and prefers Pidgin, why should I not drop from good in the so-called Queen's English and talk to the person in the language they understand? Nigerians should start thinking dynamically. One of the reasons I'm not in a newsroom is that I'm a rebel. I challenge everything. The news manager will not be comfortable when I am around, because I'm going to tell him the statement that junior reporter made is better than what you have in that script. Why don't you adopt it? I am that way. And 6 years after I left AIT as head editorial AIT News, people were still calling me to help them write scripts from home. I wrote one just 2 weeks ago, and I left in 2015. You have to endear yourself to people by dwelling at their level of communication. It is a natural tendency. It has nothing to do with laws. We should know what should be law and know what should be natural human tendency. It's as simple as that. Have I made any points at all?
Very well.
Then stop denigrating your audience. When you have those Mexican soaps, Sebastian and Catalina, the gardener's daughter, people who had no primary 6 certificates were rushing home in the evening to go and listen to that soap opera. They didn't have long certificates. They spoke only Pidgin. Yet they were rushing home in the evening to listen to those Mexican soaps. Was it only pictures they were going to watch? You are denigrating people. My mother visited me in Abuja. An Indian, a Pakistani, was speaking on television. Oyibo, what is he saying? I said, he's saying something in English. He said, no, Oyibo, that is not English. Maobasabi mama, she didn't go to school. How did she know that the Pakistani, his English was not good enough? About 1 hour later, it was time for BBC World News. Immediately the newscaster, Oyibo, that one, I can hear some of what he's saying. What does that tell you, ladies and gentlemen? My mom did not go to school, but she was able to know whose English was better, whose English could be understood, because the BBC person is obeying some laws of English, pacing the executive pause. When I hear a Nigerian say, speak English like a Nigerian, okay, let me speak English like a Nigerian. I've gone to that place and I did not see them at all. I'm speaking English like a Nigerian. How many people will understand that rapidity? What is more decent is, I've gone to the place, but I didn't find them. I couldn't find them. The rise and fall is not done for the heck of it. It is to drive home what is a content word and what is a function word. Please, I don't want to turn this into a grammar lesson, because I have problems when it comes to talking to people. I go everywhere. You have to restrain me, please. Okay?
And I am doing that right away.
Okay.
Hello.
And please, yes, and please. I know we learn every day. So some words, some of the words, like some of the pronunciation. I heard you say something about Julius Berger when you were started. You mentioned
Berger. I think the Germans call it burger. Yes. You're likely to see 2 pronunciations. One will be a G sound, one will be a J sound. It's like Raphael. The name is not Raphael, it's Raphael. I think it's a Greek word. So when you talk about, you must know whose background you're talking from. It is Angel Di Maria in Argentina, but it's Angel if you're talking about English. Do you understand? Raphael is the real word, Raphael, not Raphael or whatever Nigerians call it. So when you correct names, you have to bear that in mind. Whose pronunciation am I adopting? You have to bear that in mind. It's very important. But at the end of the day, just as you intoned earlier, what matters to you is what the generality of the people you're talking to will understand. How many eardrums understood me? What number of eardrums was I able to connect to? Because that's what the the people, the advertiser is interested in, and you're interested in those TVCs. Go on, please.
Thank you, sir. So we have 6 people that will want to ask their questions. And
okay.
I will just ask 3 at a time because we have overshot our time.
I know you have.
Yes.
And I'm overshooting my data as well.
And we have the vote of thanks, and we need to move on. So we have Gloria Ohagu, Ifnaya Obege.
Gloria. Yes, look at that O sound. Okay, go on now.
And then we have Amadi Ogbewe. Yes, the 3 of you, please, immediately, and then we move on. And short questions so that others can ask theirs.
It's okay.
Thank you.
I can see Amadi, but it's muted. Oh, okay,
Hello.
Amadi has been unmuted. Yes, Amadi, we can hear you.
Hey, good morning, sir.
How are you? You're welcome.
I'm good, sir. Thank you. So I wanted to comment or ask a question about something I've seen in other countries. For instance, in America, since when Trump won, I mean, that's when I noticed it anyway, you could tell that some stations leaned towards certain, across the 2 major parties.
Ideological leaning, yes. So
yes,
you have Fox and Friends. You have
exactly.
You have a MSNBC and all that. Yes, I know.
Yes.
Go on.
Yeah. So for someone like Tucker Carlson, is almost likely always on Trump's side. So I was wondering, is that professional? Should someone tune into your channel and know exactly where or how you are going to lean, even before hearing what you have to say, or should it be more neutral? And then the second is just about tenses, the use of tense. Words like Monday, earlier today. I don't know what is the correct which is the correct one in terms of news scripts instead of Monday. I don't know which is the better one.
It's not about correct scripts. It's about being understood by people across the world.
While we are waiting, maybe we converse with 1 or 2 people. Gloria Ohagu, are you there?
Hi, Miss Bibi. You're calling me
darling.
Gloria after 10
Glory.
years. And you know, my name is Glory.
No, sweetheart, it's Glory. I will never forget that.
You've been calling me Gloria, and I'm just watching. That's my sister.
Pardon moi.
Okay, let me just contribute to let me contribute to what he asked before I get to my question.
Okay, go ahead.
First, MBC rules in Nigeria. No leanings, be neutral. Have a balance in whatever you are doing, especially in this politics season, because stations are going to get slammed. 2, depending on where you are, remember, radio has now gone global, which indicates that your station is streaming online. And today in Nigeria might not be today in Europe, in America, in China. So you'd better say Monday the 18th, Friday the 16th, because I'd also always say attach a date to it. It keeps it clear. Just in case someone is listening in from China, and then it might be the 19th or the 20th. So be very specific. When you say today, your today might not be the today of another nation. So we have to be careful. But for the question, I'd have to wait for UGBAJA because he has to answer it himself. Thank you, Ms. Bibi.
Is yet to come on, and we have to continue. We have Delightsome and other veterans in here. They can assist us with answering some of these questions. So I would like to unmute our thoughts space. Would you like to ask your question now?
Okay. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning, ma'am.
We can hear you. Good morning. Go ahead.
There is this Go ahead. There is this confusion about which particular English to use, whether American English or British English. I've heard presenters say route, and that's American English instead of route. So can we please throw more light on this and clear the confusion? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you too. That was quite short. Veterans in the house. Lightsome. I'm super happy to have you here. This is one woman with a great welcome.
To learn. I joined to listen to other people, not to say anything. I hardly ever say anything, even on the platform. You were saying something about route and route.
Yes.
And, I would say route at any time. Why would I say that? Because maybe I started by speaking the Queen's English, and then now I have to learn to speak the King's English. But I'll still say route. And I quite agree with a lot of the things that Mr. UGBAJA said. I know we have issues.
Go on. Yes, go on.
Hello?
Go on, go on.
Go on, please.
I have issues with a lot of the things, the problems that we're having. It's not even with route or route. The major problem is that everybody wants to be heard. Whether they're speaking right or wrong, everybody wants to be heard. And when they come in, just like what Mr. UGBAJA said, he said his mother could understand the English being spoken in the proper way than what the Pakistani was saying, because he was using his Pakistani accent.
Thank you.
And for the English that we teach is actually an English that is taught in the classroom because it's a received pronunciation.
Thank you.
And again, yes, the English is moving to Mid-Atlantic because of the various people who are speaking English from different parts of the world. But be it as it may, the issue I have is everybody wants to speak on air. Somebody asked a question, is it about having a good voice? Not particularly. But is it about being heard? I'd rather I hear you with all your bad accents, so I'll understand what you're saying, than when you're being affected and I can't hear a word. And because I can't hear a word, I'm confused. I don't know what to say or how to answer you. But like I said, I came to learn. Leave the word veteran, I'm learning. Just like what Mr. UGBAJA said. He said he too is learning, me too, I'm learning. So I'll go back to him.
That's a good one. Can we clap for her? You're a great woman. Thank you so much. You see, when I look at broadcasters and the struggle, what I tell myself is they are not open to learning. I told you guys, my wife hates me because I will interrupt her. I've not come here to report that there's only one TV set in my house. Nobody should play on that, okay? I disturb her Nollywood when I come to traverse from Sky News to Al Jazeera, from Al Jazeera to NTA, from NTA to channels, from channels to Arise. The way to learn broadcasting is to watch other people. It's as simple as that. Having said that, route or route, you have to know the reason broadcasters struggle is that they have limited knowledge. How did they get route? Route was created by American engineers who were talking about where to send the wire to. You take that end and route it through the roof onto the, it's American. But when you decide to do route instead of route, the likes of CHUKWUDI OKOLIE will tell you, okay, fine, since you want to go American, when you now route them, what will you tell me when an army vanquishes another army? Because you've already taken the natural word from his environment. The enemy was routed. You have now given it to route. R-O-U-T-E, because you want to be American. And let me sound a note of warning. On Southwest Airlines, an American flight attendant, what do you call them, hostess, came to me and said, where did you learn your English? Can you teach me how to speak like that? Are you British? When I listen to Nigerian DJs who are going, I want to don't know, I laugh at them. When you get to America and speak English that tends towards the British, the American audience respects you. And it's easy. Listen to the classics, Helen of Troy, Odysseus, or listen to the language that is employed in the classics. It is not American, it is British. Those classics, those movies that are in a class of their own, Helen of Troy, Achilles, all those ones. Listen to the language of broadcast. I mean, those. Look, when people try to confuse themselves, I just keep quiet. I give you practical examples. Then listen to World Cup commentary. Okay, I'm done with the classics. I prove my point. When I talk to a broadcaster, I tell you why I advise something. I just handled route and route. Route is to defeat completely. Americans now do route or route. But let me warn you, some Americans still call it route and not route. So which American are you imitating? The American engineer who introduced it by routing something through the roof so that it drops on the back of the television, then you route it again too. That is directing wires and all that. That was how it started. But because Nigerian people borrow without thinking, they just jump at it. I just told you about the flight attendant. Where did you learn your English? Can you teach me how to speak like that? An American. And I had this experience with a BBC reporter when we were doing the Shell flyover. Ladi Akeredolu was on the train. And Ladi accused me of trying to speak British English. And the American man said, is that, you call that British English? He was poo-pooing. He was laughing at what they call my so-called British English. You know what I told the BBC reporter? You speak your English with all the raciness, with all the native speaker nuances. When I speak English, my English will be understood more across the world than yours. It's as simple as that. And I told him, when you speak to me, I don't understand everything you say. When I speak to you, you understand everything I say. Who is using English better? You have to know to be able to answer people. You have to know. You must gather knowledge. That's the secret of it. I talked to him in the language he should understand. He left me alone after that. He let me be. If your English is restricted to certain ears, but mine is open to more ears, who is using that language better? I am seeking more eardrums and eyeballs for my employer who wants more adverts to come on the screen. So I'm reaching more audience than you. So the Mid-Atlantic English is better now. And remember what I told you guys, Ike Nandagoba told a crossover broadcaster. This is to those who are affected, who read rather than talk or tell. Ike Nandagoba told the crossover broadcaster, Bimbo Loade was by our side there. You were reading and not telling or talking, so I missed the meaning. If you talk, if you broadcast in the language different from how you talk to your uncle, your cousin, your mother, you are wasting your time. You are affected. You are simply affected. You don't say, hey, mommy, I want to tell you that tomorrow, that is stupid. What you tell her is, Mom, I want to tell you that I'm leaving for that station tomorrow, and I'm not going to listen to any objections from you. You sound matter of fact. So who told you that when you now want to broadcast, it must be flowery and affected? There's an answer to everything anyone says in broadcasting. Just think hard enough. Read, listen to people so you can answer any question they ask you. What is happening in Nigeria at the moment is that people who have decided they are OAPs now are not radio presenters, BBC people do not call themselves OAPs. Inferiority complex. That's why a Nigerian academic doctor must be called a doctor wherever he goes. Where else does it happen in the world? You have to know, you just have to be natural. Appeal, let that natural thinking in you appeal to you more than that persona you want to arrange because you want to be seen as. I call it stupid. The manager news at ITV Benin, he looked at me and said, "Sir, do you know my problem with you?" I said, "No." He said, "You have oversimplified news writing." I said, "But that's how it should be." Somebody makes a caption and says, the imperative of good governance. I won't take that. It's not incorrect. But CHUKWUDI UGBAJA will write the need for good government or good governance. I'm not going to say imperative. What are you doing with big words? Jettison them, magniloquency, it's stupid. That's not natural. I broadcast naturally. When I did a report on AIT, which gave me 5,000 naira from Ladi Lawal's pocket, Ladi Lawal of blessed memory, 1,005 from the pocket of Pedro Baseki. I came out like this. I was doing my piece to camera. Satellite dishes overlooking the Abuja metropolis. In terms of number, no other broadcaster in Nigeria can boast of it. But DAW is not in the business of showing off. These dishes will power 40 channels of TV, the kind you've never seen. Report naturally, talk. Then people will watch you. We are boring in this country because we're not behaving naturally. Okay, you say you're OAP. The person you brought for an interview, what is he? Is he not on the air as well? Is he not an on-air personality? The interviewee, is he not on the air? He's an OAP. You have to do things that make sense. You have to. We need to talk to ourselves so that we do not jettison. Nigeria has a problem. I went to Africa and somebody said the internet has changed our children, blah, blah. I said, sir, I beg to disagree. Japanese children have more access to the internet than you. They don't even pay for that data. Chinese people have more access to the internet than you. Cheaper internet data. They still maintain their customs. Nigerians give inexcusable excuses and it gets on your nerves. It doesn't make sense. I'm a rebel. I rebel when I'm in the newsroom because I want the best for the station. I want the best naturalness. Tell your stories. Start telling stories. Stop reading. Tell us. The Oba of Benin is asking his subjects to do all they can to bring a lot of innovation, a lot of new things into how they celebrate the Igwe festival. Now, I just took that. What I'm saying is you go for the simple words. Let me give you an example. Do says in your story 20 times. I won't be aware of it. Because you're speaking naturally, says. He also said, he says that you can do it 20 times in one script. I won't be aware of it. But the minute you say he emphasized, I'll remember you said emphasized. Because that is not what you say. I just say, Mom, I emphasized to him that when a word is tired, please retire that word. Broadcasters in Nigeria have to learn to be interesting. They are boring because they are not behaving naturally. I am hoping to have another opportunity to interrogate politicians. It's almost done now, by God's grace, on one of the channels, so that you too can criticize me. It's not about me just talking the 19 to the dozen here. Tell me, Oga CHUKWUDI, that thing you said there, it's not correct. Tell me, because I'm ready to learn the way I learned from that Nasarawa State IT student. That's it, my dear brothers and sisters. Let me not dominate this. There are other veterans in there that can provide solutions to current ailments. Go on.
Yes. And with that, I would like to say maybe this presentation sessions will go for the next 2-3 BGF training series so that we can really, really understand what we need to do right. We have Nancy Onyebuchi, but before Nancy Onyebuchi, Gloria will have.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Yes, somebody sent me the word grew when I was talking. Now I teach schools as well. Now listen, everyone. The only time you have ew in an EW sequence is when you have few men attended the ceremony. Otherwise, it is grew, blew, flew, flew both for the cold symptoms and the bird flew away. Stop doing flew, grew, blew. No, it's only few that has the ew sound, okay? It's grew, he grew out of impatience. That's why he doesn't listen to anybody. You know, you have to, please, your words must sound right. Do not, there's something we call overgeneralization in linguistics. You see one linguistic rule, language rule, you begin to apply it all over. English is silly. The British woman who taught me English phonetics, Mrs. Ashford, said, English is silly. No one rule applies all the time. You must get to know each word, each segment on its own merit. Go on, please. I'm sorry I interrupted that, but I needed to because somebody said that word and I needed to explain about grew, blew, flew, and the rest of them. Okay.
And pew. Pew would also make that list too.
Pew. Who's that wonderful person?
That list too.
Whenever I meet you, I'm going to buy you lunch.
I got it.
Thank you, my dear. Go on.
I salute you especially, sir. It's been quite an awesome session. I was a late comer because I was in transit, but it's all good.
You were?
Yes, I was.
That reminds me, there is no weren't in English. There is no aren't in English. It's they weren't there. They aren't there. Okay? It's not that you said it. It just occurred to me.
No, I heard. I learned too.
Okay, my dear. They aren't there. They aren't there. They weren't there. Not aren't there. Weren't there. No, it's not English. Go on now. Yes.
Let's talk accents.
Accent.
Yes. And trying to be more British than the British. South Africans broadcast with their accent, and they don't even caption them when they interview them on the international media.
Yes.
But in Nigeria, we have so made accents look like ancestral curse, you know, that once you have an accent, you're to be thrown out and thrown away. Yes. You might want to address that before you end. And also talking about, someone asked the question, British English, American English. Question is, what is your station in-house style?
Yes.
In-house style, because every station has its own.
Yes.
And now the one that all of us are in as presenters, the rivalry between the newsroom and presenters. I do not know how we're going to solve it. But if proper broadcasting and professional broadcasting must happen, especially as Nigerian presenters, editors, producers prepare for 2023, we have to find a way to quench this rivalry. It's not doing us any good.
There's no rivalry.
We have a huge problem.
There's no rivalry. You concocted it. What you just told me is that there is no supervision. How can there be a rivalry? No, the young generation concocted it. How could my head of presentation come to me and tell me this scarf is too flowery? It will remove attention from the news you're reading. And you're telling me that's a rivalry. You obey the instruction. And let me answer you directly. The rivalry between the newsroom and presenters. The rivalry has never been there. What has happened is that you don't listen to your supervisors anymore. Either because they are not competent enough to talk to you, or you are simply rebellious. A system that does not have rules that can be obeyed is not a system. I can't tell you as an editor to do something and you don't do it, because at the end of the day, I'm the gatekeeper. All I need to do is to be sure of what I'm telling you. I have had running battles with people. I've worked in 7 TV stations, for your information. I'm the Rolling Stone. I roll from one station to another, enunciating the ideals of broadcasting, the things that are going to make us live long. There's no rivalry. What you just told me, my dear, is that there is no supervision and the laws do not apply in your station or in whichever station. There's no rivalry. There shouldn't be. Tony Radia asked somebody who said people don't pronounce their words properly. He said, who employed them? The whole fell silent. These new OAPs, they were given a blank check and they're filling in any amount. When I talk to you from the point of view of knowledge, whoever you are. When I had the privilege of talking to NTA broadcasters for 3 days all over the country, when I had the privilege of teaching and many classes at the TV Academy, Lasisi and Kimbaloye, that cerebral guy, he came first in my class. When I have the privilege of meeting broadcasters, I talk to you from the point of view of knowledge. So you keep quiet. The only thing you can do to shut me up is to know what you're talking about. If you don't, I tell you, obey the instruction. The point is you're not obeying instructions. And part of the problem is that you have managers who need more knowledge to be able to manage. That's why the 20 reporters who came to Channels Academy, they told me, Kingsley Ranta, Bimbo Loyede, Amani Onumono, we would like to write the way you ask us to write, but when we get back to our stations, our editors won't let us do that. And I said again, what a pity. The newsroom, the Nigerian newsroom, has to make sure, first of all, that it has editors who know their business being on the desk. Then we must also talk about overzealous reporters and presenters who want to stamp themselves more than the station wants to stamp itself on their behavior. It's as simple as that. When you have long eyelashes as a presenter, I'll concentrate on the baby, you know, that baby we used to throw up in the village, the baby, it's unnatural. But if you have it at a party, somewhere you're having a get-together, it's okay, but it's not okay in my news. I won't let you do it. I will fight you because broadcasting is my garden. Nobody's going to spread weeds on it. I'll stop you dead in your tracks. You don't have supervision, my dear sister. That's what's happening. Then British accent, please. I can never speak English with a British accent because I was not raised in the native speaker environment. I said this earlier. But I can speak English in a way that you do not think that I said live, L-I-V-E, rather than leave, L-E-A-V-E. That is not British accent. That is proper pronunciation of words so that those who know English will not return pardon me when you speak. Michael Jackson says, beat it, beat it. That is beat it, beat it. The sound in D-E-A-T is E. The sound in I-T is E. So he says, beat it, beat it. If you now say you're a Nigerian, you beat it, beat it, beat it, you're on your own. You don't know the pronunciation. Stop pretending. Broadcasters don't mess around when I'm in the room. I'm sorry, but that's the way it is. They get on my nerves, I tell them off. UGBAJA was one of the people who helped me grow. You must stand tall and assertive of the self, of yourselves. Stand erect. You must be a bold broadcaster. No politician phases me. You must own up that when a politician comes to your show, he is in your garden and must behave the way you want him to behave. That's why I like the way Rufai handled one talkative man who said he was a former minister the other time. Yes, but you must know to be able to do that. A little of everything. I'm talking about British and American. I told you, maybe you were not there when I said it. An American air hostess came to me. Where did you learn to speak like this? Can you take me how to speak the way you speak? Are you British? Is she not American? I give practical examples. Your World Cup so far has not been presented by an American. They want a British accent that will be understood by more ears across the world. There's a functional reason for it. And don't try to hoodwink me because you're talking about my garden. You can't. I'm not talking to you directly, my dear. You choose that form. My mom came to me and said, what is he speaking? Kick on us. What is he saying in good English? I said, he's speaking English now, a Pakistani. That is not English. My mom didn't go to school. Then later, when it was time for BBC World News Time, the newscaster, hey, Oyibo, I can understand some of what this one is saying because he was speaking English. I give you practical examples. I don't let anyone confuse me. No. Americans cherish you when you speak British English on their soil. They look at you as some kind of God. Where did you learn that? Come on, I like the way you speak your English. Yeah. Because the British English is obeying some laws. Punch, executive pause, rise and fall, the content words. What is a content word, if I may ask? Okay, this is not, okay. Content words refer to verbs, nouns, proper names, and all that. They take the chunk of the meaning of an utterance. Function words are just sentence joiners. So a British person will say brother and sister, brother and sister. You might not hear the and because it's not a content word, but brother and sister are content words, so they are given prominence. Those are the rules the British person is obeying that make you understand him. Stop being confused why the choice of British English keeps on being there. The World Cup commentator will forever be British because the producers, Americans do not even contest it. They want him to reach the maximum number of eardrums. If British English is understood easily, if it is tutored, I'm not talking about the Wayne Rooney, all those EPL players, those who didn't go to school, because the English we're talking about, you call it British, but it is actually British English class English. You have to go to school to acquire it. The use of the linking R, I just said acquire it, acquire it. If you don't want to use it so that you don't confuse people, you can say acquire it, but not acquire it, you know? Because I'll begin to think of EAT, you're not saying acquire it, it. You must know what you're talking about at any point you want to talk. That way you rule your audience. God bless you guys.
Thank you very much. The very last question, I'm super sorry, is Victoria, Koko Tega, and Oyebuchi. We have spent more time than we agreed, and it will be unfair on many, even though we are in our about 93 people, to continue this discussion. But I promise that the next BGF training session in 2 weeks will certainly still talk about presentation. So your questions, kindly keep them till then. Now we have this very person who has had the hand up all day, Odumosu. Please, your last question, your question.
Oh, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I knew when I was young. It's good. I've learned a lot today. And I have many. It's actually Zoindi Odumosu. I don't like my name to be anglicized. It's Zoindi Odumosu.
Oh, you actually lose the n when you speak, like Akinola instead of Akinola. That's
so yeah, it's a Zoindi.
No newscaster has a reason not to pronounce that name the way it is pronounced.
Thank
no
you.
Excuse at all. Thank you, my dear.
Thank you so much, sir.
And it's my dear, not my dear. My dear is English. It's pidgin. My dear.
My dear.
My dear. Go on.
Anyway, I have so many questions, but let me just go to 2 questions about voice and beauty. You did ask a question, Eli, so we should remind you if we still need photogeny on TV.
Photogeny, say photogeny.
Oh, photogeny, okay.
Photogeny. Yes.
On TV, and then with the voices. Now,
yes.
We're moving to the election period now. What we see, somebody contesting an election will be called an honorable.
Yes.
When the person not even contested. And we see it all the time. Yes. Honorable. Who is an honorable? It's a title, like you talk about the doctor. So we see that all the time. So how do we handle that? Yes, photogeny, the voice, and photogeny on TV.
Yes.
Yes. Those are my questions.
Very good. First of all, let's handle photogeny. The business of television is not to tell some people that they're not very good looking. But it is also the business of television to tell some people that your facial features might distract people when you read the news. So if somebody has a very big scar on his face, it would not be fair to employ such a person. Those things we used to listen to, a photogeny, it has to be beautiful like Ronka Yuba. All that is stupid. If they're scraggy, I read a piece where they said if they're scraggy, let's see them as scraggy as well. They are human beings created by God. Larry King was almost like an apparition on television, true or false. Who has been a better broadcaster? Larry King. Oh, hi-oh. You know, Larry King was not saying, yes, Justus from Lagos, can we hear you? Larry King had his style. Anytime somebody was calling in from a state in the US, you just hear, oh, hi-oh, can we have you? He had his ways. But the point is this, was he very photogenic? He wasn't very photogenic, yet we had him, and he made his mark as a broadcaster. The rule is this, if you have any facial feature that might distract from the news, don't let that person be an on-air person. But if you're telling me that they all have a nose, a flat nose like UGBAJA's nose, and somebody has given me a close-up so you can even see the nose. I can even flare them for you, the nostrils, so you can see them. If that is the reason, you are simply talking nonsense. Because my nose does not really distract. What you need to do now is to throw me back a bit so that the shot is a bit long. And you ask me not to lean forward. Producing people, you're not producing people. You have to learn how to produce a program. I am doing a series of documentaries for Luxterra, headed by Reverend Father George Husani. And we have reason to talk production to my cameraman. I said, no, Shola, I won't have that. Give me an angular shot. Nobody centers their shots on TV anymore. They create a looking room. They bring beauty into shots now. The subject is more or less on one side of television these days. How many TV stations are doing that? Maybe 5. You have to know as a broadcaster. That's the only way you can rule the newsroom and rule your audience. People must look forward to listening to you the next day. And remember, you're as good as your last performance. If you have been so good, but you end up in disaster, yesterday is that disaster we're going to remember more than all the excellence you have thrown our way previously. You'll be sentenced to be de-screened immediately by the audience. So be careful. You're a role model. Do not abuse the privilege. Then you mentioned voice and beauty. I've talked about beauty. If there's no distracting feature on the face, please put that person on the air. You're not God who created him. He could actually have better content than the beauty queen you decide to put on air in his place or in her place. What do I want more? I'm not going to mention a TV station. There's a popular TV station in Nigeria now that has a lady that would not have made it in those days when photogeny was the primary consideration. But she's one of the best readers on the station. Being professional, thinking like a professional is an attitude. You have to learn how to think like a professional. When you're a professional, you can tell somebody, I am not qualified to read the news. I think she's better than me. Why don't you try him? How many Nigerians do that? Somebody said that to me when I was in Bendel Broadcasting Service. She's an African American, a mulatto. What do you call them? Half caste. She told me, no, please, when they tell you to come and read the news at Yoruba Slope when I'm on the air, you have to come in good time. I'm not a good news reader. How many Nigerians will say that? It's because she had an Oyibo mama. That's why she thinks like that. A Nigerian will tell you, I can do it. You have to cure yourself before you can cure other people. We have a problem. I just told you how an IT student taught me kicker and rider. I am not ashamed of it because I'm learning many other things she does not know. Then voice modulation. Don't shout. I nearly shouted at some points here. That's not good enough. You have to learn how to modulate your voice. Sometimes you can sound strident. Look up that word later, strident, harsh to the ears. Strident is S-T-R-I-D-E-N-T. How many of you called it strident before now? It's strident, okay? You must not sound strident. You must know how to use the voice because you asked about the voice. The rise and fall is a feature of English usage, the use of English, English use. You must practice the rise and fall. I saw them yesterday. I saw them yesterday. Not I saw them yesterday. The reason you say I saw them yesterday, I'll go there tomorrow, is that your languages are spoken that way, flat and heavy. English is not spoken that way. English rises and falls. Where in the world are you going to get such a person? Where in the world are you going to get such a person? But where in the world are you going to get such a person? That is how Igbo, Yoruba, Hausa are spoken. That's why you speak that way. English was taken to a laboratory and treated. That's why it easily appeals across the world. They nurtured it. English sounds in a particular way because the owners nurtured the language to the point it is in now. And if you don't obey the rules of clarity, punch, cohesion, you are not going to be understood when you use English. So when people tell me speak English like a Nigerian, speaking English like a Nigerian means that I'm not going to give prominence to my content words. I might even take that prominence to the function words, which is a misnomer, which is non-existent if you want to be understood. And I dare say that when I speak English, except you're a moron, that word is moron, not moron. Moron, except you're a moron, you'll understand me. Please, guys, you can see that I've overstepped my bounds today because I hope to convince you about our garden. Our garden is being abused, whether as on interviews or on the news, presenting the news. We are not natural, and we have packed all the stories to Lai Mohammed, Buhari, Senator Kowa, Senator Jibrin, and the rest of them. The news belongs to the Nigerian people. Return the news to the people who own it. It is the Nigerian person. How many of you will do a story on eking out a living and you show me an akara seller who gives you soundbite that tells us that she trained 4 people in the university just frying akara by the roadside? People, events, and places stories. They rule the world. In Nigeria's government policy to drop here and there. That's unfortunate. One of my BBC trainers, I've had the privilege of being taught, not just by Mrs. Ashford at Trinidad. I've also had the privilege of being taught by Russell Pisgood and Max Easterman. These are BBC trainers. Max Easterman told us, what are you doing at meetings? Avoid meetings. What are meetings? Your seminars, your workshops, all those places where you go to take sound bites from people. You're giving them airtime. You are PROs for them. Well, what is the news there? What is happening in Nigeria today on Nigerian stations is that you're listing events. You're not giving us news. You're listing events. I will know that you're doing news when you do 8 minutes, different angles on voter education, where NOA is lacking, where the INEC needs to up its game, if I may use that phrase, so that more Nigerians will become aware of what you call the civic responsibility. That is news. Investigation. You don't say you're giving me news by hopping from one seminar to another workshop, because that's where the brown envelope will come. The news on their carousel is not going to give you a brown envelope, but it can give you a prize. It can give you a prize. The Pulitzer Prize can come to you if you do that story properly, and that's professional. Well, guys, they think of how they'll come work tomorrow. Okay, now.
Ogani, it's been 3 good.
God bless you guys.
Thank
now,
you
now,
so
now,
much.
find me trouble. Oh, no, today, now, don't know Sabi Parrot.
Tony and Kata, you have only 3 minutes, please.
Thank you so much.
3 minutes.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. God bless you guys. Let's keep learning, okay?
Since Tony is not there, I will speak on his behalf. I will say, Ayo, you haven't said anything. Please, vote of thanks for me. Ayo, my partner, co-host. Ayo, my teddy bear. Please,
he's a
take
teddy
vote
bear.
of thanks.
He's a teddy bear. Well,
teddy
bear. Bear. Same pronunciation.
Wow.
For
I will have to.
B-A-R-E-B-E-A-R all come out as bear. The only thing that is beer is the alcohol you drink.
Okay.
Thank you very much, CHUKWUDI.
Oh my God, where is that voice coming from? Oh my God, who are you? I'm envious. Wow.
Thank you. I'm flattered. Thank you very much. We're very grateful to have you, and we know we've learned a lot. It's always there's a sense of fulfillment. There's a sense of accomplishment when you listen to veterans who, most of us haven't met, but we've heard about certain people. We've heard them over the radio. We've heard them from colleagues, senior colleagues talk about certain people, and you are definitely one of them. And
thank you.
I'm happy that I'm seeing you and I've listened to you, and I'm sure everybody who has drank from your well of experience today are also grateful. We're sorry we won't be able to take everybody's questions. We won't be able to, there's just not enough time to do all this. You can't finish this kind of sessions in one fell swoop. So we will revisit again salient topics as regards broadcasting, as regards our profession. Thank you so much, so much, CHUKWUDI, for your time, and everybody who stayed from the beginning to the end. We also want to thank Bibi, who has been tenacious about this, and everybody who was called upon to speak. The Lightsome, this other lady from Voice of Nigeria. Thank you, everybody who came up impromptu and had to chip in, and everybody who asked questions. Another thing I would also want folks to do, everybody who has the hands raised and didn't have the questions answered,
they can talk to me later.
Exactly.
Let them feel free to talk to me, okay?
Please talk to him later. You just
I
heard
am
from
an
me.
overzealous person. I'll give you for free what you should pay for. That's my life. Because I could die tomorrow. Yeah, I don't want to take these things into my grave.
Well, you're not dying yet. Please stop. What's in there?
Negative confession.
So we will return again with another topic, and maybe we'll continue, but then we'll just try to touch a bit of everything, and then we'll revisit again salient topics or whatever with the need arises, and we just have to deal with it. But thank you, everyone. We'll end today's session like just about now. And I said, we'll see you again. BB, thank you.
Love you, darling. Thank you too.
CHUKWUDI, thank you. Thank you very
Brother
much.
Ayo, if I could for 1 minute possess that voice of yours, I'll rule the world. I hope
thank
you're
you.
preparing. Listen to me carefully. I hope you're preparing to make 1.5 million for voicing just a 1 minute jingle. Your voice is in that class.
Why not? No money is lost. May they bring a corner. Our money will talk.
God bless you all. Thank you so much. Thank you, guys.
Everybody have a fantastic Saturday. Go to the Owambers, spend time with your families. We're all busy. Broadcasters are busy. When people are enjoying, that's when we work. But then we will have the time to rest. Please do. We say R&R, rest and recuperate, rest and recover. Just do have a lovely weekend, and bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Bye-bye.